What's going on, everyone in YouTube world? This is the Cockney biker. I've just had some devastating news. My local nearest BMW dealership isn't dealing in BMWs anymore. That does suck. But what can you do? There's a lot to be said about the security most motorcyclists feel when there's a dealership nearby that they can take their bike to with any problems, issues, concerns, or just general maintenances. Oh, face for the indicator, you twat.
Unlike car dealerships, motorcycle dealerships can stock their inventory from multiple manufacturers, which is a great thing since the motorcycle community only accounts for less than 10% of vehicles on the roads during the height of the riding season. So it's often a good idea to give the potential buyers as many choices as they can within reason. Oftentimes these dealerships will have a headline manufacturer, normally Harley-Davidson, with a supporting cast of other makes. In the case of my dealership, their primary bike is an Indian, with the supporting stock from Kawasaki, Suzuki, and up till a few months ago, BMWs. Since then, they've replaced them with the KTMs.
So that left me in a bit of a pickle, having to go with a dealership nearby, because the nearest dealership to me now, or the nearest two dealerships, one in Memphis and the other one in New Orleans. We're talking nigh on 5 hours away. If I wanted to go to Dallas, then yeah, 6 hours. But you know, of course I jumped on the forum. I asked them what they thought, and a lot of them came back to me like, yeah, there's BMW dealerships. For some people, it's like 7-8 hours away. One guy described his journey having to go to a dealership as a 7-hour ride, along with a ferry trip. So what do you do? I mean, there's this sense of insecurity that kind of goes around now that when you don't have a dealership nearby. Now, of course, I'm pretty sure if after my dealership nicely, they'll change my oil and they'll change wheels. I know they can still take tyres off and do things like that if they needed to. But in general, though, if, like, for example, they closed down completely and there was never anyone around anymore, would I be able to keep this bike going?
When you no longer have a local dealership around to support your bike, you're left asking questions and having to make hard choices. Factors that are included in such choices are things like the reliability of the bike in question. I mean, can you do 100,000 miles on just standard maintenance?
Well, yeah, I think I would. I mean, I've got like a kind of bullshit version of like the GS 911, which is the computer reader, but it does everything. It sets codes, reads codes, and goes over your bike and troubleshoot stuff for you. I got one of them, so I can change oil, I can like change my tyres, I can take them off and just run them down to another shop that does tyres. So I've got tyres covered, I've got oil change and filter covered. In fact, it means anything, it's saving me money. I just changed the oil on this bike today. I ordered like the 5 quarts of oil and a filter. Now, 5 quarts of like BMW specific oil, oh bloody hell, $17 a quart. Must be made from bloody unicorns. Has to be. Anyway, so I've got a lot of them. I've got the maintenance covered. I know how to get into the airbox, change the air filter, oil, everything. I mean, obviously fluids like hydraulic fluid or brake fluids and all that. It's fine. I went and bought some brakes. I can change brakes. In fact, on these bikes, it's really easy to change the brakes, the brake pads, that is. So for like general maintenance and looking after the bike and making sure she's running okay, I've got that covered. But where I'm screwed is if something goes wrong. If something that involves you having to dig into the engine, i.e. like if the clutch goes, or if you need to do something with the cylinders. If you need to get into the engine and fix something, I don't know. These are like precision bloody instruments. I'd rather take it to a dealership. I'll just have to load it up onto the back of a trailer, which Tom so happens to have for motorcycles, jump in his truck and just drive off to one of those dealerships and have them do it. If I can't do it myself. I think I can do a valve check if I needed to. But what I would know what to do is if they were out of sync or out of alignment, how would you go about fixing that? There aren't many instructions on what to do if your valves need either replacing or adjusting. Anyway, the silver lining around this cloud is that I'm probably going to save myself an absolute boat ton of money if by having to do a lot of the maintenance stuff myself. I mean, for the $100 that the the oil and the oil filter cost me to get out of, I'd be spending like $360 over at like the dealership to get a service. I don't know. I'm just a little bit nervous that I don't have that, that safety net, that little bit of support. And that's probably, one of the reasons why, bikes like Harley Davidsons are so popular, or even Hondas, because there are dealerships all over the place. Probably more dealerships of Harley Davidson than there are McDonald's. That's a gross exaggeration, but they're right up there. Every town you go to, there's a dealership somewhere where you can take your Harley, and if something needs to be fixed on it. But I sort of get it now. When you young kids, when you buy your Panigales or Ducatis or like your weird manufactured motorcycles, and there's no dealership for like hundreds of thousands of miles, then you're gonna have to end up working on it yourself. I mean, maybe that's in its own way a good thing for like your boy racers who like riding your more exotic sports bikes. I sort of get it that you're gonna have to wrench on your own gear, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think that's a really good thing. The reason I'm going through all of this palaver right now is because at the end of this month we're going on a vacation, we're going on holiday. We're going for another like 1,000-odd mile trip. We're going to go touring around Tennessee with Tom and Melissa. Seems to be a bit of a pilgrimage now to have to go to the Tail of the Dragon again. But we had so much fun like the times I went there that, hey, do it again. I just wish that Red was here with us to do it again with, but with all the pandemics and everything like that, and him being out of work because of like the COVID issue, I couldn't ask him to go through all that expense. So anyway, with this trip that we're all going to be taking, obviously I want to make sure I take some important things with me that's going to basically keep me alive if anything happens to the bike, or at least keep the bike alive. I sort of think, well, I don't want to overload it because, it's so tempting to literally take an entire flipping snap-on toolkit with you on your bike if you're going to go for a spin. Obviously, general useful stuff. Got me little pliers and knife set, and got some of that stuff.
These days, motorcycles are becoming more and more reliable, which they have to be in today's demanding market. Warranties are covering more parts for more miles than ever before, and so motorcycle customers have less to worry about when they're riding further away from their support. Which is just as well as many mechanics and technicians require more expensive specialised tools to get into your engine. So given the reliability of your machine and the expense of repairs, I'd have to call it a wash. Which brings me to the original concern about not having a dealership nearby for your motorcycle. The more premium the bike is, the greater the concern. After all, I have a 200cc Lyphon, which is really just a lawnmower engine on two wheels, and I have no worries about that bike. So the interesting question to ask yourself when buying a new motorcycle is, would I be okay if there was no dealership to support this bike?
It's almost like, I don't know, it's like a bird sort of kicking you out of the nest. Can you do it? Can you do it yourself? Can you go it alone? Can you handle the responsibility? Because if you can, you're going to save yourself a ton of money.
I think that there is plenty of support online. With so many forums, YouTube channels full of instructional videos and Facebook groups for just about anything with moving parts, the only thing preventing you from buying your own dream motorcycle is you. So with all this being said, you have to just think in terms of this.
Ships are always safest when they're in the harbour, but that's not what ships are for, are they? I hope you enjoyed watching that video as much as I enjoyed putting it together, and if you did, do me a couple of favours. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and if you're new to this channel, there's a subscribe button down there, and there's a couple more videos hovering around here you can check out. This is the Cockney Biker. You take care of yourselves, and as always, laters.